The next factor that I believe is contributing to the rise of remote work is a bit more anecdotal, and I think it deserves some research, but I would love to see just a little bit more information on in this regard. But here's a general idea. If we look at the median age of a technology worker, they are in the neighborhood of late 20s to early 30s, at least according to some research done a couple years ago. Maybe it shifted even older recently. But as you might know, if you have a major cohort of tech workers who happen to be getting married or getting in a committed relationship and having children, they start to prioritize things a little bit differently. And so not only do you have this kind of rising cost of living pressure in cities, but people are going through some major life changes in which they value things a bit differently. So essentially, we know that with millennials, they've effectively time shifted these key life events so that they're happening later. So, for example, people are getting married and having children later. And so before it might be your early to mid 20s, now it's your early 30s. If the average tech worker is that specific age, or the median tech worker is that specific age, and they are now going through those life events, we also can kind of infer that they're going to start to care about things a little bit differently. So I remember when my wife and I first moved to Boston, most of my coworkers were in their late 20s, early 30s. They were single, they weren't in committed relationships, they didn't have children. And it made a lot more sense to live in a city, right? Because you were optimizing your lifestyle for kind of being single. Nowadays I look at that same group of people, and most of them are married and or have children, and it's kind of funny, but you can start to see them start to prioritize things a bit differently. They want a bit more room. They don't want to live in a 500 square foot condo anymore. They want a backyard. Maybe they want a school system. They are simply starting to care about different things. And so when people start to care about different things, that's when you start seeing this shift. And where I recently read an article where millennials are moving to the suburbs. No surprise there. They're just accounting and caring more about the amenities that the suburbs provide. Well, what happens when your employer is in the city and you are in the suburb? Well, as you can imagine, it becomes more and more challenging to work at that company because you're commuting, because you are a ways outside of the city, maybe because you have daycare and your child is sick and you need to go home. This is, like I said, an anecdotal factor. But if we look at a major cohort of tech worker who is going through these major life events, which tends to be a leading indicator of, moving and living in a suburb, well, then all of a sudden it breaks down those barriers to working remotely. They still might go into the city a couple days a week, but the appeal of being able to work remotely at least a couple days a week becomes much, much stronger, especially when you live further away. So, like I said, this factor is a bit more anecdotal. I would love to see some research here, but I have noticed this over and over again, at least with some people that I've met and some people that I know. And so I think there's something here. I'm just not 100% sure what it is. And yeah, I'd love to see more research.